All right, so hello everyone. We've finally gotten to this portion of the project where we are scoring, and scoring is not necessarily a number, but it is assigning a value, sort of a status of the current situation in relation to each of the indicators based on the findings that we found. And a couple things to note. I'll share some slides in a moment so I can kind of just remind everyone where we're at, where we've been, and what it's going to look like before we jump in. But the scoring is um, I'm going to say it's an imperfect process. This is our first go at it. We know that we have resources that we've missed just because of who's been able to show up for the meetings. And some of that's because of geography. Some of it's because, we haven't had someone from the restaurant world to chime in. So this is really an opportunity to um, give ourselves this kind of first go at it baseline. And then it will be going out, for community engagement and feedback. And ultimately, overall, this is a project and a database of resources within the community that we're going to continue to add to over time. So that's my sort of just quick message. Like, we won't get too hung up on some of these with the scoring. It might feel a little bit hard to score. We're going to make a decision. I'll kind of push us forward on that. And we're going to take notes on why we scored it that way. And if there's one that we just really feel like we can't answer because we don't have the right people in the room or there's too many findings that are missing, then we'll note it and we'll come back to it another time. So, um, all right. So, again, here we are starting I'm going to leave the screen like this. And again, there's a link in the chat to this document. We're starting on slide 116 so that everyone can follow along if it's easier to do it that way, because I know there's a lot of information with the sharing screen. So we are jumping in at theme 4, distributed and democratic leadership. We've got the 101 indicators plus the additional seafood indicators that we added about halfway through um, the Plymouth Carrot. We are doing this in 6 counties, and this is the crux of the scoring. So you're going to have options, no being discussed,
Sorry, Rita,
being,
can you make it a little bit bigger?
oh,
I don't know if
sure.
folks can see it all.
Oh, really? Okay. Yes, thank you for that. How do I make, okay, I'm gonna go here. Better or how's that? I
Can everybody
can,
see that okay? Yep, Meg's saying thumbs up. Perfect.
yeah. Okay, great. So we're going to be looking at each of the indicators. We're going to be looking at the resources, and we're going to basically decide, are there no findings, or is there nothing being discussed or considered? Is it being discussed but not really acted on yet? Is it being implemented? But is it sort of newly implemented? What you can't see there is a policy practice program investment that's looking at the problem, but it may exist less than 3 years. It may not have full funding. And then we've got established where several organizations are working together on it. It's prioritized, there's funding. And this is also going to be something where, as we've been scoring in Bristol County, it came up specifically around farmland access, which we know is one of the most difficult pieces for ag land. There's a lot of organizations working on it at the state level, at the local level, but it's still not enough. So we noted that. So again, all of the sort of imperfections of the scoring mechanisms are going to be captured in our conversation. Slides are going to look like this. This is sample Bristol. Um, Sample Bristol. So this is our indicator up here. These are our resources in green. We keep our scoring notes. I might be doing more detailed scoring notes than this. And then below are our options for what we're choosing. And then Joanne will be making sure that we're color coding which one we've chosen so that it's easier to zoom through. So we're going to be starting with theme four. When we assessed theme four, we had 14 cab members and we managed to get through all of our care and all of our seafood and fishing indicators. So I'll stop sharing quickly there. Does anyone have any questions before we jump in? Might have questions after we jump in. So, um, all right. I'm gonna share my screen again, but I might just ask for everyone to help me get it at the right zoom level so that everyone can see properly. Because I can't quite see that when I'm on Zoom here. Okay, now, um, for me, how's this for everyone else? You're only seeing a portion of the slide. Is that too hard to see? No,
No, I think we're
that's
good.
okay. Okay, cool. And again, on this slide, because we had enough resources, the scoring section is on the next slide. So I'll take notes and then we'll be looking at that. So jumping right in, this indicator, which is number 37, is was asking us about the resources related to educational opportunities for people to build capacity specifically in the food system. So we came up with Bristol Aggie, Land for Good, MDAR, Extension, the Farm Bureau, CMAP, the horticulture program at Silver Lake, UMass Extension, and some education that Wildlands Trust does. And so the question is around educational opportunities um, for people to build their capacity in the food system. Where do we consider this to land in terms of this is something that's being considered, being implemented, or does it feel like it's pretty well established and there's well established educational opportunities for the community?
So FFA is not under the Plymouth County Farm Bureau. They're their own entity.
Okay.
Plymouth County Farm Bureau does have, it's called Young Farmers and Ranchers as their younger development program. They just recently changed the name to Young Agricultural Professionals.
Young agriculture professionals. Would you consider Future Farmers of America a resource for this indicator?
Yes.
Okay. So then what we're doing is we're adding, so I'm just gonna, and we have been absolutely, we are adjusting and adding to our resources as we go. So, um,
I would
and then what I'm gonna do,
also
oh
add
yeah,
in Eastern Mass Craft.
yep. And how would you categorize their educational opportunities?
I mean, it's all volunteer based. So it's, Eastern Massachusetts farms who basically volunteer their sites to lead workshops for them. Um, American Farmland has done some workshops in this area as well. American Farmland Trust.
Mhm.
Um, AFT and the Beginning Farmers Network have mostly partnered with CMAP for our region.
And they're doing workshops and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So a few more in there. And Meg, you might have this might kind of be your area of expertise a bit or wheelhouse or have a sense of the overall picture. When you think about the opportunity to build capacity in the food system for food system stakeholders, do you feel like it's well established, it's well funded? Sounds like it's aimed at farmers from some of these resources, maybe more so than other food system stakeholders.
Yes, I do believe that we kind of have like a piecemeal system right now. Um,
Mhm.
I think a lot of people in this meeting have also joined in recently. There was a visioning session for an agricultural institute based out of Bristol Aggie to kind of pull these entities together in a more cohesive way. So rather
Mhm.
than entities, competing for financing or for funding. They're all kind of housed under like kind of one umbrella organization in a sense.
Mhm. That makes sense. Does anyone else have any thoughts on educational opportunities or um, particularly educational opportunities for other food system stakeholders? And thoughts on whether this feels like something that is being implemented. I mean, we obviously have some good findings, but being implemented versus established. It's like a bidding
Hi,
auction.
my name is Kevin Cogan from the town of Abington. Um,
Yeah.
sorry. We have gotten through our MVP 2.0 process a group of volunteers to set up community gardens in our town to grow food, whatever you'd like. Um, it's uh, being helped with like the actual community garden in town, Griffin's Dairy. Um, and um, I don't know if that constitutes something um, for this. Um,
Yeah, that sounds like um, certainly opportunities to learn to grow food and how
y-
to establish kind of
yeah,
that.
yeah. So
Um,
our volunteers from Griffin's Dairy Farm um, are going to be helping facilitate educational workshops for new gardeners at these two um, new gardens in town. Um, so um,
And are those workshops only open for people in Abington, or is it like a wider reach?
this project is only going to be an Abington project. It's because we got the grant funding from the state, and we're kind of just keeping it to Abington because we had applications. A lot of applications come in, but we did have some from Rockland and other surrounding towns, but we wanted to just keep it an Abington local project, prioritize Abington applicants.
mhm.
Might be nice to use as a pilot project though, Kevin. So that's a great thing. I mean, it's
Yeah,
something the rest of the region can look at. So it's a resource in that respect.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a lot of work and in planning, but we have two locations set up, and May 9th is the orientation date for um, the new gardeners. So should be good time.
Yeah, and thank you for pointing that out. It does seem, community gardens are they are a pipeline for people to be growing food. And in there is a lack of like new farmer opportunities. And we are seeing that there's a lot of people that do want to grow their own food, but it is that access to land. And so most community gardens have wait lists. And so, I think they really are part of that pipeline to growing more food. And there's an interesting one in Orleans, Putnam Farm, where people can actually sell. So you can that's atypical from what I've learned from community gardens, but you can be basically a commercial market gardener from a community garden, which is, again, unusual. So,
This is a nice
um,
opportunity too, Rita, to promote an MVP funded activity within another MVP funded activity. It will provide the
mhm.
state the impetus to maybe help fund more pilot programs that are consistent with what we're putting together in the overall food program.
Yeah, and that's what's, from our end for all of this, what's been really interesting again is being able to see these really cool projects that are going on in different Massachusetts-based towns that are very relevant to other Massachusetts-based towns and kind of providing some of those templates and models and case studies for, particularly around this access to land. There's another really interesting, cool situation on the vineyard where the local grocer is actually allowing some small scale food production by some Brazilian farmers on his front lawn because they really want to grow. And he's like, I'll help you get it to market. I've got this, half-acre front lawn, start there. So I think that, to Lydia's point, for anyone who's on the steering committee meeting, is like using a little bit of creativity and really thinking about what's that bare minimum access to land. So, Kevin, thank you for bringing that up, but I totally agree that that's an important part of this.
Yeah, one thing I would just toss in then would be the Master Gardens Association of Massachusetts. So the Master Gardeners program down the Cape is an awesome program, but it's only for Barnstable County residents, whereas Master Gardeners of Massachusetts, anybody can join that program, but then everybody has to do 60 hours of volunteerism. And Master Gardeners Association manages, like, I'm not sure what the number is, like approximately 15 community gardens and things like that too. So they do like a pretty deep dive educationally. It's not just into vegetables, of course, but they it can be an outlet for people to get started on the educational path.
Right. Yeah, and I think if we really start to highlight that as an opportunity, as again part of capacity building for actual farm production, because I think it does feel like it's been a bit overlooked. There's that gap. So in the name of again looking to assign sort of a status to this, it feels to me like it's educational opportunities. I'm just going to scroll over here. That there's programs, there's investment happening. Some of them have been around longer than 3 years, but I would tend towards assigning the being implemented because of that piecemeal aspect. And I'd throw it out there to see, what do other people feel about assigning it a being implemented, but it's not established per se. And it's not established as a priority. We got a thumbs up from Meg. Anyone else have any thoughts or naysaying, disagree, want to argue for something else? And we can put asterisks around these if anyone wants to say, it's being implemented, but so if not, then I'm going to take the being implemented as the final decision.
While
Yeah.
folks are considering that, I don't have editing access.
Oh,
Yeah, and when I send a request, it would go to ED Ecola,
oh,
E Decola.
it's because Emma created the file.
Yeah, and I don't think I can track changes either.
Okay, let me see if I can get you on there. I should be able to. I think okay. I think you just weren't actually on the list for some reason. But you should be able to do that now.
Let me try again.
And you can choose the color, Joanne, any color that, if you can get editing access. While Joanne's figuring that out, I'm going to write it here in big notes. So we're being implemented, and then we can move on to the next one and see if Joanne can get in there. Okay, so this one was looking at local food policy council. And there's not necessarily, so South Coast Food Policy Council has had a footprint in Plymouth before, I think a little bit less so now, or a little less involvement from some Plymouth community members. So it's also looking at these other established organizations. The question is, what are the resources related to having a local food policy council or similar organization that incorporates the concerns of local food system stakeholders, ensuring that meetings are accessible, initiatives are accessible? We came up with South Coast Food Policy Council and Plymouth Economic Foundation, but we didn't have any other solid resources other than these. Anyone want
I'm not sure if the SNEACS conference would go in that, under that umbrella. So that's the Southeast New England Ag Conference and Trade Show that takes place every February. There's a number of organizations that it falls under. It's, CMAP, Extension, my gosh, I'm like blanking out right now. There's like NOFA, Rhode Island is part of it.
Bristol Aggie?
Bristol Aggie is a partner. Yeah. The land trust, whose name I cannot think of right now.
Buzzards Bay,
No,
Westport.
Ponca.
Oh, Pecasset, Poconoket.
Yes, thank you. There's some other partners too. I can send you an email with that, but
And so, thinking about that as an organization or a collaboration that's incorporating concerns, do they have like a listening session at the conference and they're bringing people together, or?
yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of it. So there's, we've worked with organizations to come in and do, economic sustainability, land access, so yes, there's more designed workshops, but then there's also like listening sessions and then the ability for people to connect and get resources through that conference as well.
Mhm. So looking at this question again, that does sound like, I do think we have it possibly listed elsewhere. It is an increasingly valuable, because I think it's maybe in its third year now, resource for sure. Maybe more.
Well,
Um,
the CMAP conference has, I mean, over 10 years, but then it became so much more. So SNEACS, I think yes, I think we just had our third conference. Yeah.
about three. So listing that, so I think going back to again, figuring out how to score this, it's looking at Plymouth County, is there an established organization that's incorporating concerns of local food system stakeholders? Um, is it being discussed? Is it being implemented? How would we think about how these resources are sort of affecting the opportunity for local food system stakeholders' voices to be heard? Does anyone else have thoughts? Go ahead, Meg. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thought. Molly, what is the name of the group that we've been going to, food access, the new executive director at South Shore Community Action Center. She's had, I think, 3
Nikki?
meetings.
Oh, Nikki's group. Yep.
Yeah. What is that called? Because it's bringing together like food pantries, producers, to talk about food insecurity in our region. But I can't think of the name of it right now.
I can put a question mark there, food access group. So that's an organization that is pulling different stakeholders together and elevating those voices and potentially considering initiatives.
The name of the group is the Emergency Food Provider Meeting.
Okay. Okay. Great. And I will add those as additional resources in here. So yeah, I'm just going to push a little bit again. Does anyone have any thoughts on how you would score this particular indicator? I'm going to suggest it's somewhere between being considered and being implemented.
I would say being considered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else want to chime in or disagree or vote for more being implemented? All right. I'm going to be like an auctioneer here, going once, going twice, move it quick. Great. Okay, so this is another one related to the local food policy council or similar organization. So are they in Plymouth County, are they actively seeking and recruiting demographically diverse leadership to elevate the voices of those most affected by food policy? Meg, I'm going to throw in SNEACS again down here because it does sound like that is something that just by the partnership is something that is being prioritized.
Yeah, and they're trying to bring in more, just like a wider variety of folks into that organization. So yeah, I would agree.
The Marion Institute, again, the South Coast Food Policy Council has does have food equity advisors. And so those are people with lived experience of food insecurity that are provided a stipend to attend each meeting. And it is also a policy of the Food Policy Council to look for and recruit a really diverse demographic. Again, I think that at the moment, the reach of the Marion Institute on a regular basis into Plymouth County is probably limited. So this is another one that I'm going to suggest is being considered or being implemented. Maybe even no findings because the Marion Institute and SNEACs aren't super Plymouth County.
I'd lean
But
towards, yeah, I mean, personally, I think I'd lean towards the no findings one.
Mm.
For that reason, I think there are other bits and pieces of maybe some other folks who are trying to do this, but I don't really think it's
I would not say that there's
gelled
like
yet.
one strong voice that's
Yeah.
doing this work.
yeah. So yeah, let's do it. I think again, if anyone else feels differently, chime in. But I think that would be definitely fair. So okay. So this is again poking at that Food Policy Council are similar. This one we did have no findings, so this is also did we miss anything? And again, looking at who is being actively involved in these organizations and whether or not those organizations reflect the demographic and socioeconomic makeup of the community. Because there isn't really a strong organization doing it, it seems like this is still no findings. Thumbs up or any comments or thoughts. Um, okay. All right. So the next one here is asking about whether organizations like a food policy counselor, including a wide range of food system practitioners from across the food supply chain. Again, the only resource we have here is the Marion Institute. So I would say this is potentially a no findings as well. Anyone have any comments or thoughts I can throw into Sky? I just want to make sure everyone who's quiet, no pressure, but just want to make sure no one's got any burning comments they want to make. Because I can't see everyone, so when I'm sharing my screen. All right. And this is all good news because this is just clear gaps and opportunities for us here. So um okay. So this is another one that we really didn't have a lot of we really didn't have any clear agricultural co-ops. The Plymouth Farmers Market was mentioned as an informal cooperative where I'm not exactly sure how it works, but it sounds like there's some informal cooperative work that goes on between farmers or getting their leftover food out to other organizations afterwards. I don't know if anyone has.
I would say Coastal Food Shed, even though they're located down, in New Bedford, especially when they had the local food, the LFP grants, they were purchasing quite a bit from Plymouth County farmers to then aggregate, in their marketplace and also selling out, wholesale to schools, etc. Obviously, that's been kind of curtailed a little bit with the loss in funding, but there are still some Plymouth County farmers who are working with those guys down there.
There's also the cranberry growers. I mean, they're
Oh
technically a
yeah.
co-op. Yep. And
Yes.
also the Island Creek model, Island Creek Oysters, I believe, is maybe not formally a co-op, but it's multiple individual oyster growers who then sell together. So it operates like a co-op, I think.
I think those are great points, Megan and Joanne, because I think this also involves products from our region going out of the region. A lot of times these things might not have a base in the region, but we do provide platforms for products to go out of the region.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Um, I suppose the one question I have about Coastal Food Shed. So, in the spirit of this theme, the way the carrot is looking at this question is in a resilient food system, farmers have more ownership over the supply chain. So, Coastal Food Shed would be more, they're really less of a cooperative and more of that formal, key, critical distribution piece, but it's not necessarily giving farmers more control unless, Meg, that you do feel that they are playing that part.
Um, I mean, I would say, especially again, when their funding was really like really well supported. I mean, I know at least, three farmers who were growing specifically in some cases for Coastal Food Shed because they had a guaranteed
Yeah.
buyer. So, in essence, I mean that was a pretty supportive program, but again, that funding has been cut, so that model has kind of taken a hit.
Hmm.
But those relationships that they set in motion, they do still have really strong relationships with farmers, so that farmers aren't having to like hustle things back and forth to a million farmers markets. It's much easier for them to have like a guaranteed, outlet to sell to.
And that's actually, I'm gonna capture those notes and I'll probably do it a little more broadly, but that came up in Barnstable too, where the sort of the real resource at this moment in time was that LFPA funding network, that the relationships that were formed through that funding mechanism, even though the funding is gone, are still there and could be reignited with funding and how supportive that was for farmers. So I think that's a good point. And we'll figure out how to expand on that and categorize that. Um, so I guess then the question is around this indicator and whether or not in Plymouth County there are cooperatives, and we're going to call it informal or formal, that are helping to create and grow these agricultural cooperatives to sell in local food markets. Would it be, it's probably being considered or being implemented?
It's a tough one because I feel like for farmers in general, I would lean maybe towards even no findings because apart from Coastal Food Shed, which is far, there really isn't any initiative underway.
Yeah. Yeah.
But just for cranberries and oysters, it seems like it's, being implemented. So it's kind of a hybrid. So maybe somewhere in the middle with being considered.
I know. I think the other thing that's hard too, I mean, there's a lot of like CSA farmers that are, buying from each other and, selling, in areas that, if they have a crop that failed or if they want to make their CSA more attractive, then they'll, buy in from other farmers. So for example, when you say
Mm.
Plymouth Farmers Market, for example, so I used to be one of the managers there. And so after the market was over, you'd see people switching and, okay, I bought apples off this guy for, to supplement my CSA shares, things like that. So that's all very much, by word of mouth and like relationship building. The Eastern
Mhm.
Mass Craft listserv, to go back to that for 1 second too. I mean, that's emails just from farmer to farmer to farmer. And you will see in there that people will be like, hey, is anybody selling X, Y, or Z so that I can, add to, to my CSA share or to my farm stand, or, you know what I mean? So that's much more like independent, like on their own. But that Eastern Mass Craft listserv, in addition to it offering those workshops, it has just like a completely free for all way for farmers to contact each other to make some of these relationships happen. But that's all of Eastern Massachusetts. It's not just Plymouth County.
Mhm. Um, I think that I think that's a good one. We haven't really come up against this yet, where there's such a divide too between sort of, I would say, like land-based, the situation for land-based farmers versus wild cranberries, and sort of like I kind of list them as more of those commodity crops that also have a strong export out of at least the county. Um, so I suppose maybe to your point, Joanne, the being considered is a good one with an asterisk, and then we can add in the nuance in our commentary. If that feels, anyone else have any thoughts on how to think about that and note that? No, Joanne, what you did suggest being, well, you suggested no findings for some small scale farmers.
On
Although we've
the
got,
land-based.
yeah, and we've got, but at the same time, we do have these informal networks that are
Mhm.
cooperatives that are happening. So,
I think
It's
being
um,
kind of
considered
something
is
where
fair.
you've got a little bit of everything here, Rita.
mm,
Really,
yeah,
you have.
you're right.
Oh yeah, and some of them, I mean, like the Ocean Spray Co-op, that's been around for that's established. I mean,
Mm.
that's and
So I
some
think we
are
go
being implemented.
back
Yeah,
to that Plymouth County viewpoint and ask, like, in Plymouth County,
yeah.
is there are there programs that are supporting and growing formal agricultural cooperatives? Um, because you're right, Bill, we have some very established, so, but is it something that is being done formally to build resilience in the food system in Plymouth County?
I think being considered with the asterisk would be good because the asterisk you could add the programs that are established, the
Mhm.
programs, like Meg was saying with the Eastern Mass Craft that do things farmer to farmer. So you have kind of individual things, some very well established group things, and a lot of things that are kind of acting informally or maybe growing right now.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm good with that. Meg,
I
I
like
see you
it.
nodding your
Yep.
head. Joanne, how do you feel? Is
Yeah,
that,
fine.
yeah? Okay. Okay. So this is collective marketing networks, and the discussion here in our community advisory board really went kind of broad with this. When we're thinking about marketing and distribution, this is where Coastal Food Shed came up. Um, and again, looking at local programs, looking at state level, regional programs, and it felt like there was a strong sense that there are quite a few sort of marketing in as much as I'm going to grab your things and move them to another place and support you, kind of what you're talking about in the last one there, Meg. Um, I think some of these, to me, other than Ocean Spray is in there, CMAP, Ocean Spray, those are very organized. A lot of these, Mass Grown is another organized, but some of these are a little bit more informal.
I think maybe the Island Creek Oysters model will probably fit better under this one. I
Mm.
think. I
Oh,
think it's more of
sorry.
a
And then,
collective marketing type thing.
yep. Um,
How about some like because you say shared kitchen spaces. There's like Dartmouth Grange, there's Patty's. I forget the name of it is Patty's in Kingston. So these are key places. I know that some small scale farmers and producers use.
um, so we've got some shared kitchen spaces where there's opportunity for some collective marketing happening. We're going to move Island Creek Oysters here. We're going to at least add them here for that collective marketing aspect. Um, so the question again is with all these different resources and it here is how would we think about this in Plymouth County? Is there collective marketing? It's being implemented, it's being considered, being established would look at the fact that this has been a priority and it's funded and we're doing collective marketing in Plymouth County for moving local food.
I think the Island Creek folks would be considered established, and I think probably the Greater Boston Food Bank pantry supply program
Yeah.
would be considered established. But for everything else, I kind of feel like it's probably really there's no findings.
That's a big spread. I didn't expect that, Joanne.
I'd like to keep it, on your toes, Rita.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good point. And I thought it was interesting, stayed true to cab findings unless it was something that it just the answer was no, they don't do this. Um, and I thought, again, I think it's interesting that the cab did also include a lot of this emergency food access. aspect when we were talking about collective marketing. So I think that that's something to note, and maybe it's something we pull out from the scoring that um, the collective marketing, so the state of collective marketing around emergency food is that there's a good strong network. Um, Whereas for non-emergency food, it feels like there's, other than a few larger established businesses, there's not there's no findings. And I would tend to say, Joanne, with that in mind, I would suggest no findings, and then we might adapt how we look at this one to make sure we capture what's going on for emergency food. Because I think the nature of the carrot question was more around the
Commercial.
yeah, commercial in
Yeah.
the food. Um, Others feeling okay with that? All right. All right. This is that co-op owned retail. We had no findings for this one. So this is for any of us who've been to Western Mass, maybe been to a co-op of Vermont, that we don't have a co-op owned retail in Plymouth County. Is that unless there's one we
we
didn't
have a
uncover?
woman, there's a woman in Whitman called Homestead Harvest, but I believe it's not really a co-op model, but it is specifically purchased food that's aggregated in a retail space, like with a shop component. But I believe that she's purchasing wholesale and then reselling, but it's all local food. Um, and so she's trying to elevate, that. But again, like I don't know if that would. It's more like a retail space.
Yeah, and I think we do have, I don't know if I'd have to check. There is one that asks about retail that supports local food. So sounds like Homestead Harvest would go into that one. And I'll make sure that we have it in there if we didn't capture it. So this one's looking like no findings. Gonna jump now. This was another one we had no findings for. This is around food packaging innovation. So we didn't find any resources, practices, policies that's encouraging reuse innovations for food packaging. All right. This is around mentorship for business development. So in Plymouth County, representatives of established local businesses provide mentoring guidance on food business development. We found Cape Cod Growers Association, Plymouth County Sheriff's Department, their farm with the job training, aquaculture, farmer mentorship, and then CMAP has various programs and offerings.
Would you consider general business support that's not exclusive to food businesses? So for example, like NeighborWorks Housing Solutions provides support, business development support for all kinds of businesses, and they might be restaurants or retailers or whatever else.
Yeah,
Same thing with the SCORE program, which is a state program.
yeah. I think those are good ones that we didn't include here. They come up elsewhere.
Yeah, I think we
Um,
did mention them somewhere else.
yeah, so I do think those should be added here if that's NeighborWorks seems like a really cool program to be honest. And they've actually got some really interesting grant funding for small businesses. So I don't know much about them, but if it feels like that they're fit this indicator, then yeah, absolutely. And score, I would agree that that was something that we could add in here. Um, so as I'm adding those in, anyone want to throw out whether this feels like something that's being implemented, being considered, no findings, doesn't it feels like it's too piecemeal to be established?
I feel like it's pretty established. I mean, the county farm sheriff support stuff has been around, I don't know how many years, but I think it's more than 3 years, definitely. Same thing with the SCORE and the NeighborWorks programs,
Okay.
CMAP.
All right, so we've gotten established, thrown out there. I'd say if no one's saying no, then Joanne wins this one. You got it. Score and NeighborWorks. And again, I'll come back and we'll have a final version of this. Okay, we're moving, so anyone that's in blue is our seafood. Um, so this was asking about whether or not there's a sort of established local seafood policy body that includes fishers, aquaculture growers, marginalized voices. And this is who we came up with. New Bedford Ocean Cluster, CMAP, Massachusetts Fishermen's Partnership, um, Massachusetts Lobstermen Association, Seafood Collaborative. Felt like there are quite a few resources. So does anyone want to comment on that? Throw out a scoring.
Do we know how many of our Plymouth County seafood folk are actually participating in these bigger sort of statewide or New Bedford area clusters?
That's something I definitely don't know, and I don't know if we have anyone here who could answer that. I think that's a really good point.
I
Um,
I know that the Lobstermen and Fishermen's Association or partnership have both appeared before the Plymouth Select Board and other town committees at various points. Um, they're um, I'm trying to think back. There was also uh, and I can't remember the name of the group, but it was had to do with shell fishermen, and it wasn't the oystermans. I'll try and
There is a group because Dale, who's on the CMAP board, is like one of the head guys in like a local shellfish.
Oh yeah, Dale Levitt, the Mass Shellfishermen's Association.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, it's Dale. Yeah,
thank you.
um, and I'm looking at it, and I apologize because there's been so many acronyms. MACD, was that supposed to be the Mass Shellfish Association? Which is really hard to say, actually. Um,
that
No,
could be the conservation districts.
that's MACD is the conservation district.
Yeah.
I'm wondering
The
if that was.
shellfish is somebody different. Hold on.
I have a feeling that that is what that is supposed to be.
I'm trying to Google, but somebody might be a faster Googler than me.
Yeah. I'm not Googling since I'm sharing screen, but we can come back to that. And there's others. So as we've done this too staggered, and I can't quite remember when we did theme 4, but Barnstable has a ton of resources around a lot of the seafood. And some of them, what we found too, is like the Cape Cod Commercial Fishermen's Alliance has a pretty big reach. They're impacting the islands. I don't know if they have a presence in, or supporting any of the Plymouth County fishers. So we do have some more information. We haven't updated the Plymouth County findings, but I think that's a really good question, Joanne, about how active or how supportive or how these organizations are impacting Plymouth County. This is one too, if we feel like we don't have the answer, we can come back to and we can ask some of our fishing and seafood people.
Right. I was just going to make the comment that as things come back to me in my dotage, it was in relationship to the Holtec proposal to dump into Cape Cod Bay, that a lot of the fishermen's, lobstermen's, shell fishermen's associations came out in force and testified before the NDCAP and town government here in Plymouth.
Okay. Would Plymouth be one of the more active in terms of commercial fishing in Plymouth County? Is it one of the more active waterfronts, or Duxbury would be pretty active, yeah?
Duxbury too, yeah.
Yeah, Duxbury's huge. Well, for
Okay.
shellfish
Yes.
anyway.
And Plymouth would be quite large as well.
Okay. I feel like this might be a good one to come back to and maybe to do a little more outreach to some of our fishing reps. Does that sound fair enough?
Yep.
Sounds good here.
I can kind of put a little more context on some of these resources that we called out. Okay, so this is one that's looking at fisher capacity building. So the question is around whether or not in Plymouth County, BIPOC and small boat fishers are represented in decision making. This MACD keeps coming up. It must be special, and I can't think of what it is.
It's got to
And
be
it
the
very,
conservation district, maybe, but I don't know
is
why it would
it?
be MA. I don't know.
Well, there's
Yeah.
a statewide mass conservation district, and then underneath is like the
Maybe
Bristol
that.
County, Plymouth County, things like that. I know Plymouth County is working on that like shellfish, dumping site, specifically in our county. But I don't know if maybe one of the statewide initiatives for MACD is, shellfish or fish specifically.
Yeah.
You could reach out to Kim LaFleur. She's Plymouth County's contact person.
Well, I'll do a little, it didn't stick out to me when I was going through these again, but now that we're talking about, I'm not sure if it's in error or if it is that speaking to those projects. Okay, so this is who we came up with. And I have in yellow the comment from the Herring Pond tribe from Melissa Ferretti, who was that was from a one-on-one interview that Barrett had through the larger local food action plan. And when we asked about this question from her point of view, she felt that no, BIPOC and small boat fishers aren't represented in decision making. Um, I'm one thing that didn't come up in this cab, but has come up on others is the role of some of the shellfish advisory boards at the town level. So I don't know. I would imagine probably Duxbury and Plymouth have those boards. And again, how active are they? Are they listened to? And are they representing small boat fishers? This is also something to me that when I look at the resources that are here, it feels more like programs that are designed for um, people and maybe not necessarily BIPOC and small boat, but I don't know enough about the resources here.
Well, it looks like it's mostly educational resources, right? Instead of opportunities to actually be represented in decision making.
Yeah.
So I would kind of lean towards no findings on this one.
I think I would lean that way too. And if no one else has any comments, then we will take that as a no findings and move on. Inclusive marine governance. So again, this we had already come up with no findings in our cab, looking at programs that are supporting small scale seafood processors for local markets. And we had noted that Mulaney's does processing for the aquaponics program, but there's not any clear indication that there's specific support for them. Their business.
Hey, Rita, talk
yeah.
about my mind being jogged. Back a couple of questions ago, we were talking about the MACD and the Shellfish Association. I remember Dale Levitt. I've known Dale for years. He's with the Mass Ocean Cluster in New Bedford now. He was, I think he's a professor emeritus at Roger Williams University. But I think the Shellfishermen's organization in that people might have been thinking of was the Mass Shellfish Officers, which is different. But Dale's with the Ocean Cluster in New Bedford now. So, and he works. You're right, Meg. He's with CMAP too. So that's where that is. So you can get rid of that. So it probably was the Mass Association of Conservation Districts that we were thinking of, because they have assistance in those programs too.
Okay, and they do have some shellfish restoration projects.
Yes.
I think. Yeah. Okay. I'm learning more about conservation districts. The ones that I've come across are more, it would be like the Cape Cod Conservation District. So what you're
Yep.
saying is there's the Mass Conservation District, and then is there like a Plymouth Conservation District?
Yeah, there's 13 of them. So it's the Mass
Okay.
Association under which is 13 of them.
Okay.
Plymouth's has been active. Bristol, for example, is just getting up off the ground again.
Yep.
Okay.
So they're at
Okay.
different statuses.
Okay, sorry to get you sidetracked, but I just figured to get the alphabet soup out of the way before we revisited it later on, thinking, why did we say this?
Yep, no, I think that's fantastic, and that helps me then again place those findings and make sure that we're naming these resources properly. Um, so we've got the Plymouth Conservation District, and then it would have been the Massachusetts Conservation District that's providing various programs related to inclusivity for fishers' voices, shellfish restoration, shellfishers, etc. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I would suggest that this stays at no findings. Okay, so cooperative seafood marketing. We've got the Cape Cod Fishermen's Alliance, Island Creek Oysters, which came up, and then Whitman's was mentioned as having shared space on their docks for food pantries, freezer, and refrigeration space. So that's an informal one, but sounds like a resource. Um, and the Cape Cod Fishermen's Alliance, again, I don't know if we have anyone that will be able to comment on their footprint or impact on Plymouth County, but they do seem to have a pretty broad impact.
There's also I need to think about their name right now. They're like a fish truck. They go to like all the farmers markets.
Oh, Jordan's.
Yeah, because Jordan's doesn't just sell their stuff. They'll buy at the piers from other local fishermen and sell as well. So I don't know that again, like it's really an established co-op, but it is like supporting a number of like other, local fishermen.
Yep. And I think it sounds like that sort of distribution bit of infrastructure. Um, um, Looking at this through the lens of, again, is there support for collective branding, distribution, and infrastructure in Plymouth County for seafood? Thinking about is there significant support? Is support being considered, implemented, established?
Tough. I feel like on the shellfish side of things, it's probably pretty well established. Um, but I mean, the Jordan's fish truck is the only example, and that's a pretty small truck with,
Yeah.
very few markets. So kind of lean maybe towards, yeah, this is hard.
Yeah.
I mean, they
I
do
would
have
say,
multiple trucks because they
Oh, do they? Oh, I didn't
yeah,
realize that. Okay.
they have at least two.
Oh,
Um, but
and
again, I mean,
do
I don't know
they,
if their capacity really is not saying it's really huge.
mm,
and it sounds like it's a more, well, I think the questions too would be, are they I would imagine they are, but promoting the fishing boats that it's all local. I would tend to, and again, we'll figure out how to deal with this. We'll figure out how to deal with this where there's this real clear split, particularly between shellfish and maybe other fish. I would almost suggest that there's no findings. Um, there's a
yeah. And if you're
business that
strict,
exists.
yeah. And if you're
Yeah.
strict about the co-ops, there really isn't any co-ops. I mean, Jordan's isn't a co-op. They're just a distributor of local seafood, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, not to dismiss the value of that. That's
Mm,
massive. But it's not looking at this like it's basically we're looking at resilience is relying on one business to do that work as opposed to supporting collective action for the fishermen's collective branding, etc. Chatham Harvesters, Chatham's Fishermen's Co-op would be a good example of one that really does that, owned by producers. Um, So I'm just going to note here, Joanna, maybe fill them both in and then we'll come back to it and figure out how we're going to deal with that. Okay, this is looking at retail outlets. So it sounds like basically who are the retail outlets that are selling local fish, and it sounds like Jordan's would go in here as well.
But do they count if they're not a co-op or collectively owned?
Um, no, you're right. Yes, correct. And Woods probably isn't either, eh? They came up. Okay. So I'm gonna do this, and then I suppose we've got a no findings here. I'm gonna just mark them. Um, how am I gonna mark them? Just gonna put it here. That they're not taking these into account as they are not co-op. And then I'll adjust later. All right, moving right through into theme 5 for the last half hour here. This is again looking at some of the supports for fishers farmers. We get a little bit into some of the financing here, and the financial support. We had 14 cab members and we got through everything. So farmers input and planning. So again, in Plymouth County, are we effectively and routinely bringing farmer and processor concerns into community planning decision making? We found some strong advocacy from some individual farms, Holly Hill and Hornstra, Langwater. Then we've got the Cranberry Growers Association, Cape Cod Cooperative Extension Marine Team, working with, I think, aquaculturists, and then CMAP. So this is how are farmer and processor concerns being brought into community planning decision making. So clearly there's some resources. And again, we do have a little bit of the separation with, the cranberry growers versus sort of everyone else. So is this something that is important? It's being considered, it's being implemented. Are farmer voices being brought into planning and decision making effectively in Plymouth County?
I know there's a push to get the state ag committee group back up and running. They just had a meeting in Carver a couple of weeks ago. Somebody help me out with what they're called.
Oh, the agricultural commissions.
Yes, the ag commissions.
Yeah.
But there's a statewide organization that's trying to bring everybody back together again.
Yeah, Farm Bureau.
Oh.
No, it's not under Farm Bureau. They're under their own. They have their own.
I
Is
thought
it Pete Townsend? Pete.
Oh, I thought Karen Schwalbe said Farm Bureau was going to pick up the ag comps now. And how's their stuff there?
I don't think so. I don't know. I talked to the woman who was coordinating it, and like I thought they're their own independent thing. I mean, I'm a Farm Bureau member too. I didn't know her besides the phone call we had. But they might still be maintaining their own name, but like technically maybe like under the support of the Farm Bureau.
I think that's what they're doing, Meg.
Okay.
So that's something I've heard happening as well. And so I think they've been doing it for about the last at least half a year. I know that the Westport Fair, they had a meeting, and that I think it's being supported by MDAR. And I think that, and they're starting to log who has ag commissions, who's active, who has right to farm designation.
Yeah, I just looked it up quick. It's it says the Department of Ag encourages towns to form agricultural commissions. There's a website. It's called the Massachusetts Agriculture Commissions, and there's links you can click on. There's a map of the state that shows which towns have a current active AgCom, which only have a right to farm, and there's information about how you can get your town on board. There's only
does that tell you how up to date that is?
Yep, it says as of August 2025, there were 159 agricultural commissions within the Commonwealth.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that was dormant for a while.
Yeah, so
okay.
this must have been, you know, the initial step, and now their pursuit to get these back.
And I'm
and
pretty
going.
sure Barrett looked at the municipalities in our project area to see which ones had ag committees and which did not at the municipal level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is and I think, and I haven't had a chance to look through Barrett yet, but also noting to who's actually active
I know.
based
Yeah, I was going to say, I know in Serped and OCPC, there's 24 AgComs. 19 of them have right to farm bylaws. And this is as of, I think, was it maybe March of 2025? And I've been, Pete Westover was at that meeting, Meg, Pete Westover and Sarah Gardner. I gave
Yeah.
them all the old AgCom handbooks to update. I had mentioned that I still had them electronically, so that's what they're going to do. They're going to start updating those things.
That's great. Yeah, I was at the Mass Ag in the Classroom event that day, so I couldn't be there. But I mean, they used to have a really strong. That used to be a really strong organization. I can't remember the lady's name who used to run it. What was her name with like the dark hair, like dark wavy hair? Like there was a lot more support, you know, from like the state coming down.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
But now I feel like, yeah, a lot of ag commissions have kind of been like trying to push forward on their own. So I don't
A lot
know.
of
It could still be under farm. I could be under Farm Bureau. I'm not really exactly sure.
I think that's the announcement that Karen Schwalbe made at that meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
That because the ag commissions had kind of fallen apart, the wheels were falling off. Dick
Yeah.
Ward used to be the president at one time. Dick was at this meeting, so I was really encouraged to see that they're trying to make the comeback, and that's why MDOT's funding Pete and Sarah to go around and have these listening sessions again to try to see what everybody needs to build it back up. But yeah, if it works right, if it gets healthy, it's gonna be a great
Resource.
advocacy group here.
Yeah, fingers crossed, right?
So I
So the
think
way,
oh yeah.
I was just going to add, if we're talking about community planning decision making, I think often the formal plans that communities create, like their master plans and hazard mitigation plans and million and one other open space plans, I would say, at least in our experience in our region, there hasn't been much farmer input into any of those. I would probably say it's not even a top priority group to outreach to, generally speaking, unless it's an open space plan. But in which case, I think often you get very little participation because they're just so busy with actually doing farming. So in those formal community plans that are developed, I'd probably say that there really isn't any representation in those.
There's I was going to say there's a great opportunity with AgComs coming back too, because AgComs are supposed to have work plans, 5-year work plans. And we brought that up at this AgCom listening session. And there's also a handbook for helping AgComs put together effective work plans and how to interact with local government. So if AgComs have work plans that address a lot of the needs that we bring up in the CARROT and the regional food plan, again, that would be really dynamic. That would tie them into just about every level of planning in the state.
Right.
I would throw out there, and Joanne, I think you make a really good point, and we can again come back to this and think about if we need to sort of asterisk or split how we're scoring this. But those specific plans get called out in another indicator where I think we basically say exactly that there's plans that exist, but they're not necessarily incorporating farmers or food. For this one, it feels like it's like a strong being considered, not quite being implemented, but there's awareness. Multiple organizations are discussing how to involve more farmers. I don't think I would give it a being implemented yet, but and then I would just point out too that some of that individual advocacy, we're seeing this in other counties as well, is really critical, but it's not very resilient because it relies on one or a couple active involved farmers to be able to stand up for something, and it may or may not be representative of how all the farmers, etc. So being considered, thumbs up from those in the know. All right. Okay, this question is resources specifically for aspiring BIPOC farmers and producers. We did find we did call out Land for Good Young Farmers Network, and they do have some very specific targeted resources, um, and some great resources, to be honest. And this is standout. Now they are more regional organizations. So I think again the question is how to score this. These resources are available to everyone in Plymouth County. They're not Plymouth County focused, but they are there. And so just looking at how do we rate the level of policy practice or program providing direct resources to aspiring BIPOC farmers. Um, I think this is also something MDAR has come up. It's a focus increasingly, but not necessarily sort of specific funding mechanisms or support mechanisms for BIPOC farmers.
I don't even know to what extent we've managed to engage BIPOC farmers ourselves in our
Mhm.
project, so I really don't know. Um,
That's a good point.
yeah,
I, that's a
it's
very
kind of
good
like a
point.
black hole, I think.
This has
Yeah.
been something that, like, I know, like, CMAP has done a lot of work around. Farm Bureau has, and the thing is like Plymouth County specifically, if there are necessarily BIPOC farmers, they're not necessarily identifying themselves, like coming forward, because there was a big push as far as like surrounding some like grants and things like that. But again, that land trust that we talked about, which name I can't remember. Um, they specifically work with indigenous farmers, but again, that's kind of like through their own work. So it's not that some organizations haven't really tried to like establish some relationships, but it's at the stage that like I've been present on, there hasn't really been a lot of people to work specifically with.
And our biggest community of color in the project area is Brockton, and I don't even know, if somebody was an aspiring farmer from Brockton, I'm not even sure. I mean, I guess they could go to Bristol Aggie for high school, but I'm not aware really of any of our like local community colleges really having too much to help direct them that way. So I don't know if they know where to go or what resources were out there.
I think I think in this carrot process as well, we've had some participation from Brockton. But what I've noticed, and I can't think of the specifics off the top of my head, is that there were a few things that I noticed when I was looking through these findings where Brockton has specifically made, I think there's no community gardens allowed in Brockton.
Not
Um,
on municipal land, yeah.
not on municipal land. Like there's almost there's more barriers to entry, even at that, again, that very basic level of a possible community garden. I would throw out there, and knowing that CMAP, Farm Bureau, Pocaspoconoket, that there are these more regional organizations that are clearly considering, if not
Mm.
implementing, but I would say for Plymouth County, it sounds like this is more of a no findings. And I think that again, this can also flag for us that this might be a no finding because of the limitation of who is involved in the process, not because there's no findings. So I'd throw that out there, or maybe it being considered if people want to acknowledge the work that some of these regional organizations are doing.
For Abington, it's kind of a TBD about
Mhm.
who actually is a member of this population that shows up for their garden plot
Mm.
on orientation day.
Um, Yeah, again, Kevin, I think will be a really interesting project to follow with kind of the context of carrot and what we're finding that the importance of community gardens, how they are an important feature in a lot of towns and how they can be, again, potentially a pipeline. So, um, okay. So we've got a no findings and we'll take it unless someone chimes in. All right. Um, all right, this is the Ag Advisory Board. Now, this is something that could be updated now that we know that there's between, I haven't updated this from Barrett yet. This is kind of what we've got, where we've landed, where we've got active ag commissions in Carver, Plymouth, Kingston, and Marshfield. And then we have the Plymouth County Farm Bureau. So this is who came up when we asked about agricultural advisory boards who are composed of farm representatives providing guidance to local governments. And what I do like about how the Carrot asks this is that they're actually listened to, because we have heard of that happening as well, where they exist. This is actually what has happened. I think it's Nantucket, where they exist and they go in front of the select board, but there's not funding, there's not support, there's not a prioritization. So,
I can say that Abington, I think, is um, thinking about developing a commission. This whole idea started because there was some ideas about a right to farm um, designation for the town. Um, that was not or recommended to be passed over by our finance committee for town meeting. So I guess I would just say being considered, like at the finance committee meeting, they said we should adopt an ag commission. I mean, someone said that. So I guess it's kind of being considered.
I'm wondering if that's something. Now, this is also a level of detail. This is where it's sort of, where does the carrot stop? Where does it begin? But this is a town by town level of detail, looking at who's on the ag comes. That's actually something too that was brought up specifically on Nantucket, where there were sort of farm adjacent representatives, but because of the time, it was difficult to get farm representatives. I think that might have people who are actually farming. Um, so I think I would throw out there more, particularly because of the discussion we just had around where the Massachusetts Agricultural Commission's organization is that this is more of a being considered. And then if there's towns that through this kind of community engagement process after we score this as well, we might get some more information, town specific details. Does that feel like a thumbs up for people? All right. This is where you guys really were strong. Cooperative extension staff. Um, and we threw in a few others, but organizations that are providing farmers and food makers with critical information about production, distribution, and marketing. And we talked a bit about the overlap between some of the cooperative extensions and where they're filling in gaps for each other out of county as well. I don't know if anyone wants to disagree with anything we've listed here, or I think to me this looks like a being implemented, possibly established.
I would probably just add NOFA. I mean, they're a statewide organization, but we do
Mhm.
have Plymouth County farmers who utilize them. I mean, UMass Amherst soil lab. You don't know if they're like specifically represented, but a huge number of our farmers utilize them for all their soil testing needs.
Mhm. Yeah, I think they're a good call and missing in this list because out of county, but they're such a big player for all of the farmers.
Yeah.
Would this be established then? I think cooperative extension staff, technical assistance, pretty well established.
I would probably, I agree with established, but I would maybe just add a note that for food makers, I don't know what
Mm,
they define food makers as. I'm thinking people that are making like, I don't know, jams and jellies and processing stuff. I'm not sure there's the same extent of support as there might be for farmers.
that's a great point.
Yeah, I
Yep.
agree.
Would you even consider that? That's just a no findings, I think, Joanne, for food producers. I don't think there's a lot of support for food makers,
Just the,
sorry.
I think it would just be the general business support that we mentioned before through like SCORE and stuff like that.
Yeah. Um,
So it's kind of no
possibly
findings on one and established
other
on the
than,
other.
yeah, other than general business support. Yep. And then we can capture those nuances here. This is formal mentorship for food startups from local industry representatives, and SCORE was the only program that we came up with that is providing formal mentorship to new business entrants. I don't know if E4All would. We haven't found they've been present definitely in Bristol County. I'm not sure how present they are in Plymouth County, but they've definitely in neighboring counties they've had a good footprint. If it doesn't sound familiar, we won't add them on, but um so I would throw out there as well, while SCORE is established because it's for general business mentorship, um, not specifically to food. Yeah, that's where I was going, Joanne, is no findings.
Yeah. I think maybe, I'd have to check on this. I think maybe there was some mentorship through SCORE for restaurants a while back, but I don't know. I can't, that might have just been a COVID related thing.
Okay. We'll check for restaurants. And that is one of the sort of the gaping holes that we've had in representation, and that's actually across the board.
Mm,
For each county is from restaurants. So we've
interesting.
had a few here and there, but
Just a time
uh,
check, Rita. It's
yeah.
124.
Okay. Um, let me see how many more. Um, we'll do two more and then we'll close it out. And Joanne, we haven't had a chance to talk about this, but one of the things that we've done in Bristol County is when we're sending out what we found to people. Obviously, they can comment, but asking people to do some of the scoring and send us back, and we'll aggregate and discuss
Mm-hmm.
in between meetings so that we can
Yeah.
keep moving through. All right, so we'll do two more together, and then we will just ask everyone to provide some commentary and their thoughts via email for the rest of theme 5. Okay, food business accelerators. Commonwealth Kitchen in Dorchester, Hope in Maine. They are two of the most important food business accelerator programs in the region. Not in any of our southeastern Mass counties. Then Plymouth Extension, I think Molly, you mentioned there's informal support. And then we had two shared kitchen spaces that came up, Kingston Grange and the Made in Mass Boston Bon Bon. So question is, in regards to food business accelerators or food technology programs in Plymouth County, are
It's actually called Peggy's Kitchen in Kingston. And it's
okay,
the
great.
Dartmouth
Oh, okay.
Grange is in Dartmouth, which technically is not Plymouth County, but I know it's
Yeah,
utilized by some people who, go across county lines.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got Peggy's Kitchen, the Grange,
I believe
and
there's a shared kitchen space in Rockland, Mass, and Rockland is Plymouth County.
okay.
Let me look it up. 'Cause I
Um,
know,
so Dartmouth Grange. Now, what we hear too, just to put some context on this, is that Dartmouth Grange is often fully booked.
yeah.
Um,
And so is Peggy's is also fully booked a lot. Yeah. Um, and like Hope in Maine is like super expensive, so that's why some people don't utilize them.
the feedback we've had from small producers is that Hope in Maine and Commonwealth Kitchen, they're expensive, but they're far. And so, particularly even more so now, every cent counts for small producers.
Yeah.
So, trying to get to those locations are tricky. And then um the shared kitchen spaces, to some extent, they're not actually accelerators. They're more critical
Yep.
infrastructure supports, but not accelerators.
Yeah, like
I
Peggy's is not an accelerator. Dartmouth
yeah,
Grange, I mean, I wouldn't really consider an accelerator either. I mean, Hope in Maine and Commonwealth are the ones that kind of have like a wraparound support system, whereas
Mhm.
these other ones are really just, access.
Yeah. Would we throw out a no findings for Plymouth County?
Yeah, because I mean, I mean these resources exist, but they're not like say accelerators. I wouldn't say that we have any organizations that are doing that specific work.
Mm-hmm. Joanne,
Mhm.
any others? All right. Let me see. All right, we'll go no findings there. Let me see how big this one is. It's a big one. And I would say that this is pretty well established, to be honest. Although I'm gonna back that up and let you guys, this will be our last one. This is around produce distribution to food insecure households. So we've got a lot of resources, and I'm gonna throw out there are probably more resources. What we are looking at specifically here is that fresh food um, support to food insecure households. I think too through the lens of the carrots, maybe through a little bit of our own lens too, though, is, I think often where there's a gap is around local food. So, um, but I don't know. As our last one and pushing us a little bit, I would say this is probably pretty established. Joanne, yeah, I see you going
I would
there.
agree, yeah.
Feels like a video game, at least for you and I, Joanne. I'm like, where will her cursor pop up? Bill, did you want to add anything as we close out here?
No, I think that's good.
Okay. Okay, so we made it through a whole theme and a half, which is great. And you will be hearing from us. I'll stop sharing here. You'll be hearing from us with via email, and I'm just going to send the slides of the ones we didn't answer and ask for people to provide their feedback.
And Rita, are
That
we
works for
still
everyone?
holding the extra meeting on next Wednesday?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So we'll send
So
out a
we'll,
reminder and agenda for that as well too, with these slides.
yep. And we will keep going. Okay, thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. And again, even for those that may not have felt like this is their wheelhouse and had a lot to comment on, it makes a difference that you're here. So really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Take
Thank
care.
you. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.